Think using just one block design in a quilt sounds boring? Well, think again. Hi, I'm Victoria Peat and welcome to Rotate and Reveal, where you can discover the magic of rotating quilt blocks to reveal new quilt designs. You will be amazed at how many stunning designs you can create by just rotating your blocks. Get ready to unlock endless creative possibilities with one block quilts. Even if you are a beginner, you will be able to create designs that look much more complicated than they really are. In this video, we will explore some of the great layouts that can be achieved with a simple 3-colour 4-patch quilt block, repeated several times over.
As the name suggests, a 3-colour 4-patch quilt block is made up of 4 squares using a total of 3 colours or prints. For the illustrations I'm going to share with you, I have chosen a lighter pink background, which features twice in each block, plus a darker pink and a red, which are in turn featured once in every block. As a quick aside, there are a variety of ways that you can make 4-patch quilt blocks. 1 at a time, 2 at a time, or several at a time using the strip piecing method. There are links to demo videos for each of these techniques in the description below. You can also check out my website where I have the ultimate guide to 4-patch quilt blocks. You will be able to learn about the structure of 4-patch quilt blocks, colour options, and of course construction techniques. So without any further ado, let's have a look at some layout options. All of the layout designs that I'm going to show you will be based on a grid of 4 blocks across, 1, 2, 3, 4, by 4 down, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a total of 16 blocks. You can recreate these layouts using a square layout like I am here, or you can extrapolate a little to create these designs in a rectangular format. Here you can see we still have the 4 blocks going across. Here I've extrapolated down to add an additional row so that we now have 5 rows in total to give you a rectangular layout. What you'll find is that you can create even more variety of layouts when you're using a rectangular structure rather than square. So this first layout that I have for you here is the most simple and straightforward. On the left here we've got the original 4-patch quilt block. You've got the 2 light pink squares I have that I'm calling my background fabric. We've got the darker pink in the top left and the red in the bottom right. So on this layout here that I said was going to be in a grid of 4 by 4, so 4 rows across and 4 columns across and 4 rows down. What I've done is I've taken this initial block and all of them within this design are facing in exactly the same orientation. So to make that a little bit clearer for you, I have a grid that I can bring up so you can see each of the individual blocks. And then if I layer on top of that some arrows, this will show you that each of the blocks are laid out in exactly the same way. They're all facing, let's call it upwards, so that you have got your dark pink in the top left and your red in the bottom right. So this is super simple and it creates this wonderful checkerboard kind of effect. So moving on to layout number 2, it's a really simple change, but you can see how you now have a lot more movement within the design. You've created these diagonal lines using the dark red, but you've also got the same thing with the darker pink. So it just creates that extra amount of movement. So if I bring up the grid for you, you can see where each of those blocks are located. And if I bring up the arrows, you can see here, looks a little bit complicated, but actually what you'll find is that all we've done is we've rotated some of the blocks by 180 degrees. I've started off with the first one in the original orientation, and then I've rotated the second one and the fourth one by 180 degrees, so they're facing the other direction. If you move on to row number 2, we've done the same thing. We've rotated alternate blocks. So the first one and the third one have been rotated 180 degrees and they're now facing downwards. Then what's happened is we've got row 1 and row 2. They've been replicated to create rows numbers 3 and row 4. So it's not quite as complicated as it first looks. Next we have layout 3. And for me, this feels somehow more contemporary. I don't know, what do you think? When laying out the blocks for this design, I think it might be easier to think in columns rather than in rows. If I bring up the grid, and bring up the arrows, you can see here that the column number 1 and column number 3, they are all positioned with the blocks in the original orientation, so they're facing upwards. But then in columns number 2 and columns number 4, each of those blocks has been rotated by 180 degrees. And that's all we've done to create this slightly different, to me, more contemporary looking design. So moving on to layout number 4, this design reminds me a little bit of brickwork, or at least it would do if it was in a slightly more appropriate colourway. Again, with this design, I think it's easier to think of in terms of columns. So let me bring up the grid and the arrows. Columns 1 and 3 are exactly the same as each other, as are columns 2 and 4. They're the same as each other as well. So columns 1 and 3 have the blocks facing alternately up, down, and then columns 2 and 4 have got the blocks alternately facing right, then left, right, then left. So whilst it looks a bit complicated, it isn't too bad. So when it comes to layouts 5 and 6, these are essentially the reverse of each other. The design features 5 solid blocks, but layout 5 has a pink square in the middle, but layout 6 has a red square in the middle. If I bring up the grid and brace yourself and the arrows, it looks quite daunting, but actually what you'll find is that in each case rows 1 and 2 have been replicated to create rows 3 and 4. And rather than following the arrows to lay all your quilt blocks out, what I might be inclined to do is to just lay out these central 4 blocks here, because what you can do is you can create this pink square, or if you're going for layout 6, you can create this red square. Then you can do all the blocks around these outside edges to create these other solid squares. So it's not quite so complicated as lefts and rights and ups and downs. So if I just remove the arrows for you and the grid, you can see those designs a little bit more clearly. The difference between these two designs and design layouts 5 and 6 is that each of the central 4 blocks have been rotated 180 degrees. So these 4 here have been rotated 180 degrees. And what this does is this has changed the colour of the central block. So the red that was in this corner is now in the middle, and that's happened all the way around. So that's created the solid colour in the middle, and you created this little bit of extra movement as it draws the colours out towards the outer edges. And you can see how what difference that makes between layout 7 and layout 8, because you're focusing on 7 on the darker of the 2 accent colours, and here's the lighter of the 2 accent colours. You've created a totally different feel by just placing your blocks in a different arrangement. So if I bring up for you the grid and the arrows, again, these arrows make your eyes go a little bit squiffy and it's a bit hard to follow. But I think what I'd be inclined to do is to just lay out this central section here to create either the solid red or to create the solid pink. And then you can go ahead and place the remainder of the blocks around the outside edges. So layouts 9, 10 and 11 are all based around a similar type of layout. There's just small changes that we've made to create different looks, but I hope you'll agree that they are all quite different. So for layout 9, we have got a pink, dark pink square in the middle, and then you've got these double 4 patches around the outside. Layout 10, you've got the dark red in the middle with your double 4 patches around the outside. And layout 10, you've got a double 4 patch that's been created in the middle, and you've got the double 4 patches around the outside of that. But do note in this one that your double 4 patches are not all going to be facing in the same direction. So you've got your reds going on this diagonal here from bottom left to top right, but the central one goes in a different direction. If I just pull up the grid, you can just see how it's the orientation of the blocks that creates this 4 patch in the middle, and you can't make it with the blocks that you have. If you're doing a 1 block design quilt, then you can't create it where they're all going in the same direction. You'd have to go down a different route if you wanted to create that look. So you can see here, if I bring up the grid and the arrows, that you've got the layout here to show you. And if I just zoom in on each of these in turn so that you can see them. So this is layout 9. Here are the arrows for you. Again, I think I would be tempted to be laying out the central 4 blocks and arranging the other blocks around the outside. You've got here layout 10. So you've got the red in the middle and then around the outside edges. And here you have, oh sorry, I've gone too far. This is your layout 11. Again, rows 1 and 2 have been replicated to create 3 and 4. So there's without your grid and your arrows, layout 11, layout 10, and layout 9. So there you have it, 11 different layouts that can be created with a simple 3-colour 4-patch quilt block. As I probably said at the beginning, if you're working on a rectangular design, then there are even more options that you can come up with by simply rotating the whole design. In this example here, we have layout 4 that has been rotated by 90 degrees and an additional row has been added at the bottom. You can see how this just extends the design, and by applying this principle to some of the other layouts, you can create some really great designs. Do you want even more layout options? Well, if you sign up for the newsletter following the link below, you'll receive a PDF that features 20 different layout options. The PDF has all of the layouts in this video in both square and rectangular layouts, plus there are a load of other new options for you to try. Once you have your design, you can go ahead and make your quilt blocks. If you're new to patchwork and quilting, don't forget to check those videos in the link below. They'll help you with your construction techniques. When assembling your layout, to keep track of which block is which, I would label up all the individual blocks with your row number and your position number. It helps you keep track of where you are with everything to make sure that your design comes together exactly as you intend it. Particularly when using one block quilts, it's very easy to lose track of where you're up to. So be structured, be organised, and you will be fine. So that's it from me for this edition of Rotate and Reveal. I hope that regardless of your experience or skill level, you have the confidence to explore the design options there are from even the most basic of quilt blocks. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss a new episode. And if you're feeling particularly generous, leave me a lovely comment. So that's it from me. Happy quilting, and I will see you on the next edition of Rotate and Reveal.